Young Reporters Disclaimer. Before we get started, a quick note. The views and opinions you'll hear on the Young Reporters are just those of the producers, our guests, and our friends, and don't represent the policies or official views of the Orin Edson Entrepreneurship Plus Innovation Institute. And remember, the Young Reporters podcast is for entertainment purposes only.
Matchmaker Communications 101, in collaboration with Arizona State University's Edson Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute, presents The Young Reporters. The Young Reporters chase down ordinary people doing amazing things in the greater Phoenix community and beyond. These inner-city young journalists take their classroom on the air, a class about ethics, commitment, loyalty, and teamwork. When you're on The Young Reporters, be prepared to talk about things you never expected. And now, let's go into the classroom.
So reach for me like the petals of a rose bloom in its season.
Seems like we're always getting back in the classroom, Alan. I love being in the classroom.
Nothing like being in the classroom.
We are in the ASU Sky Song classroom, which is like probably the best classroom in the United States, because ASU Sky Song, but let's get more specific, ASU Edson Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute is part of the larger ASU mission, which is they are the #1 school in the country for innovation.
For the 11th year in a row.
For the 11th year in a row. That's Kim Reynolds adding that. I'm not sure if your mic was live there, Kim, but we want to make sure.
Try it again.
For the 11th year in a row.
Still a little bit weak on the mic there, Ellen. So we by the way, we are a show that we are not afraid at all to be 100% authentic. If we screw up in the studio, we talk about it. We don't care. If we have a good group in the studio.
Wait, I care.
Well,
care. I'm the AI guy.
You're the tech guy.
He has to edit it.
But so we're still having a little issue on her mic as far as I can tell, but that's anyway, that's part of what we do is we fix it as we go. We are not perfect, but the whole point of this is get the right people in the studio and we matchmake. We connect the community. ASU Edson, what they're doing with this Edson Institute, they're solving problems in the world better than...
This is a problem.
Okay. Oh, there we go. We got our microphone reconnected.
Oh, there's
There
that velvet voice. Oh my God! Can you
no
believe?
wonder now we can hear it. Thank you very much.
Hey
okay?
Bob, this is another one for the
the greatest hits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. We have a greatest hits developing with the Young Reporters show. But we'll get to that another time.
We are authentic.
Yeah, we're very authentic. I say, you know what? I'd rather be able to solve problems with some headaches than never solve a problem. And so that's...
Learn most by failure, not by success.
Well, Kim, you have a lot of really good common sense expressions that you bring to us. You really do. And so when I remember them, we bring them up. But what I want to get to is that we have a fabulous studio today. Let me go through a couple quick introductions. I'll go to my hardcore right here. We got hardcore Kathy Droz is one of the co-founders of this Young Reporter show. By the way, we do work with kids. I'm going to say this every show because not everybody is a visionary, and that includes on our team. Not everybody's a visionary every day of the week. And so, yes, we work with kids, but we are at the mercy of schools giving us kids to work with. And so it's not for lack of trying. Believe me, we're on the verge. I've got a phone call coming back real soon that we're on the verge of working with a major inner city school district real soon. So we'll be up and running. And thank you, ASU, for being very patient with us. But the other thing about that is, as Alan and I were talking about over the weekend, this show here with the adults, it's always been a part. Kathy, you remember, we've always had the adult show as part of what we do to give the kids a rest. So we'd get the kids out of the classroom once a month. We'd tape 2 shows, and we had a contract. We had to fill 4 weeks of shows. So we had the adult version of the Young Reporters under different names, but we always did the adult version. And what we learned in the process was the adult show really allowed us to connect the community in a more direct way. The kids connect the community too, because people come into the classroom with us, into the studio, and they want to see what are these kids doing. what's this show? Everybody comes in confused. It's so much fun. I love leaving people wondering and confused. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of challenges in it, but it's a lot of fun. But the adult show has a massive purpose. Today being a good example of it is connecting history into this studio as well. Today is a very historic show, but whatever show we have guests like Paula Hartley to my left, who's...
And Bob, I'm confused because we were starting with Kathy.
Yes.
And now you're hopping all over the room.
Well, that's part of the problem is that there's so much in the studio. And I'm the least of the most focused people in the studio, so I'm the worst of the offenders, you know. So Kathy Jones, I'll go to Paula Hartley. By the way, they are a team kind of. There's a reason because Kathy gave Paula some advice that she talked about on her last show, and I loved it. It's sort of the opening part of the show. Kathy, you said when Paula was retiring from her Ballet, Arizona leadership role.
Give it away. Make them go back and watch the last podcast.
No. That only becomes a bonus. What is the podcast site, Alan? Just since Kim brought it up, what's the podcast we're sending him to?
cradioshow.com. I didn't study for a pop quiz, Bob.
You have to be awake on the show, Alan. Alan falls asleep during the show, Kim. So we have to wake him up. So.
I'm managing all the equipment, all the technology and everything, and then you throw
very
out
well, apparently, from the opening with the unhooked microphone.
You
do a great job, Alan. We have a lot of fun with you.
I'm a work in progress.
Yes, we all are. Yes, we all are. WIP, work in progress. Kathy Jones, the automotive journalist, gave some advice to Paula a couple years ago in which you said, Paula, now that you're no longer the principal dancer at Ballet Arizona, which she was for many years, I call it the prima ballerina, but she says principal dancer because there are other stars at Ballet Arizona, but Paula was amazing. So, and she still is.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah. So Kathy gave advice to Paula saying, Paula, your fame was going to last about 6 months? You said before she gets forgotten. Is that right?
Paula, did I say 6 months?
No, I think you said 3 years.
3 years? You give her a lot of time, Kathy.
She did give me a lot of time, but I think.
But you were having a baby.
But things have changed. Yes, I was having a baby.
Yeah, and that's 9 months that we.
So what changed, Paula? What changed in that? When you say things have changed.
Well, for one, social media has changed. You know, I think.
So does that make it easier
Instagram. Well, nowadays, I think for people who are working that might go into retirement, if you have an Instagram account or a TikTok account and go into retirement and you already have certain followers, then that does become easier. But if you weren't in that, you know, if you weren't involved in that beforehand, getting into it afterwards, the aftermath is much harder. So I got into it after I retired, and I probably would have much more followers.
No, because I'm going to tell you something. Seriously, everybody's learning. Paula, everybody's learning. The new lesson is that everybody's learning, get off the technology. If you want to be connected, get off the technology and do it in person. Do it in person.
Oh, I believe that too.
You know, and so what I mean, it can help the marketing. I get that part. But this show is built on what's in the studio. Yes, there might be a podcast audience out there, but what happens in the studio is all that matters to me. If the connections happen here, we change the world. And so Kathy Droz and Paula Hartley have done their versions of changing the world. Kathy has been an automotive journalist for years and years, a PR and marketing person. She was one of the original founders of the Young Reporters. Go around to the regulars. Alan Ripa is a fabulous renowned musician, in addition to being a luxury real estate guy. But Alan, when I get to my notes a little, Alan does.
Yeah, I did.
Well, he's a Volkswagen repair guy, whatever. Alan's done anything and everything. It's
that
amazing.
was 1918, though, Bob.
I know that, but let me keep going around and say a quick intro. Jeannie Dean, we'll get to Jeannie's description a little bit later. Jana Scott, Kim Reynolds, who has now become a co-host on us. In fact, it's very hard to get time away from Kim, so that's why I have to be very aggressive.
She's the co-host with the velvet voice.
Yes, she's got all that stuff going for her. We've got John Borelli. John's been in the studio with us before. He's been with the kids show. He's been with the adult show. Cap Dean. So now I've done my introduction, my basic introductions, so everybody's got a name now. But let me go to a couple quick observation about something. So I wanted to go to that Kathy and Paula thing because it relates to something Kim said too. So Kathy gave Paula advice that once you lose your platform, which is the dance company, it's like you can like go invisible pretty fast. It can really happen. Kim, you said something on the last show, and I'm taking up this whole segment, which is ridiculous. We'll really devote to Jan in a minute. Kim, you said something on the last show as well, that prior to you always were brilliant. You were always a visionary, but nobody knew it because you didn't have the ASU credential.
It wasn't nobody knew it, nobody cared.
Nobody cared because you didn't have the ASU credential, right? Believe me, I understand. When I was in this ACYR school where you were at, I knew I have your phone number from back then. I knew you were in one of the classrooms. You weren't in my classroom, were you? Stuart Grant was one of the guys there.
Stuart, yeah.
And then do you remember who was in the classroom? I was in the. I lose track, but you were there, but you weren't on the radar, and I apologize for that because I was sitting next to a visionary in the same building with a visionary, didn't know it, but Kelly Sheik, who's not here today, made the phone call. She made the phone call that got us in touch with Kim Reynolds that started this whole process of us being able to collaborate with ASU. Cap Dean recently made a phone call. He noticed something. This is not I push this to everybody, but Cap Dean made a phone call somewhere in the last year or so. He called up somebody he didn't think would want to hear from him because he saw him on one of the social media things, I think, Paul. I think he saw him on one of those places. And he called the guy. It turns out that guy was Cap's replacement as mayor of Baghdad, Iraq. And that guy helped get Baghdad back to being somewhat democratic thanks to his instruction in Iraq at that time in like 2003 or so. And we'll continue this story as we come back after this short break. I apologize for taking up too much of this segment, but there's reasons why. This is a historic day. Stay with us. Let me pick back up where we left off, segment one. So, as I was saying, a number of years ago, I went to church. I go to church all the time, but I went to church a number of years ago at Pinnacle Presbyterian, and this is in 2003, I think. 2004. He knows when I went to church better than I do, Kim. So I'm in church, and all of a sudden I'm hearing, and I'm sitting in the upper deck or whatever, and I'm just kind of like, I'm always in the back where I'm going to church, but I'm sitting up there, and all of a sudden I hear something. I thought what I heard, it was like, so we want to welcome back somebody or other who just got back from Iraq. And I'm hearing that, and Kathy, this is before we got anything to do with the kids, but we were doing our stuff. We had met, we were meeting a lot of people and connecting people, having a lot of fun, and so I heard that. So I figured, that was like in the sermon or whatever, and so I waited about 45 minutes more for that, the service to be over, and I had to find this guy that he was just talking about. So I went, and I think there was a little greeting spot back in the narthex or something, and so I went up and said, "Are you the guy that just came back from Iraq?" And I didn't know his name. I didn't know anything about him. And so I said, "Let's do a cup of coffee if you got the time." And so we eventually did. But I went back to the school I was working with at the time, and I said, I met this guy over the weekend, and his name is Cap Dean. And they all go, "You met Cap Dean? Oh my gosh, you met Cap Dean? Bob, you've got to bring him here." And I said, "Okay." And so that's kind of how this stuff starts. It starts by nothing. It starts by gently barging through the door. And so Cap recently was the best example of doing that. He thought, for whatever he thought, and I asked you that, Cap, when you made that phone call, you weren't expecting to get a response, or you sent a text message, you sent an email or something, right? What did you do with it?
I sent something on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I had run across his name on LinkedIn.
What was his name?
Ali
Amini?
Dr. Allah Al-Tamimi.
There we go. And he had written a book, right?
He had written a book, or was in the process of writing a book, about his time in Baghdad, and basically, eventually, Baghdad had been called the City of Peace for many years, and he was an engineer, a nuclear engineer.
And so when you saw that in the book, and you think, well, he probably won't remember it. What were you thinking? What were you thinking in that moment?
Well, I thought I'd like to get back in touch with this fella. I had worked closely
It'd
with
been a lot of years, right?
It'd been, my gosh, 20 years, yeah.
And were you mentioned in his book at all? Were you mentioned?
Well, I was mentioned, which I did not find out until after he sent me an autographed copy of his book.
And so
And-
I want to get to this more in detail later, but my point is that Cap Dean, who not only did that service for our country, years before that, he served as the chief negotiator between Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk in South Africa. And so Cap Dean was having doubts about whether this guy wants to hear from me. And I'm telling people all the time, yes, they want to hear from you. I don't care who it is I'm talking to, the person you're thinking doesn't want to hear from you. They do, partly because of the internet. The internet is killing relationships. It's why we teach the kids what we teach them. It's why we teach the concept of interpersonal relationship, communication, and asking the basic questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how. Adults need it probably more than kids. Kim, you're experiencing some of the issues of being a producer on a show. It's not easy getting guests in the studio. It's really hard to do that. And it takes a lot of salesmanship to get people to get interested. What are you doing, and why do you do it that way? I mean, you wouldn't believe the number of questions I get on this stuff. Where are the kids, and just a lot of flack.
I want to know what it's about.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the question. But we're halfway through this segment.
Okay.
And we have Janet.
Yep.
And she has to leave.
And we're going to get
And I
Jana right
haven't heard
now.
about her.
So Jana is part of this whole thing. Jana's part of this whole thing. So Jana, let's get you going, because Jana is part of this history. And the reason why, Kim, the reason I'm making these points is that it applies to everyday life. It's not just kids, it's the adults. And so if we don't get the idea that we're becoming disconnected and that we have to work at making those connections, it's a hard job, and it's very vital. So Jana and I have been in touch. I think, Jana, I could be wrong on this. I think we met at a Terry Mansfield party. I'm not positive. It was like something to do with the Department of Peace movement, right?
Yes.
And at that meeting, if I'm not mistaken, the key speaker at that meeting was Marianne Williamson, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
And Marianne Williamson, if people don't know, Jana, who's Marianne Williamson, real quick?
Well, I don't know her title, but I know that she is in the realm of exoconsciousness and being from other planets and all of that type of thing.
She's a little bit out there. Yes, they're a little bit out there, right?
Well,
I'm from Mars.
Oh,
great.
so Jana, in that
women
meeting,
are from Mars, men are from Venus.
in that
Yes,
meeting,
that's right.
you were basically kind of by yourself for at least a few moments. I looked at you and I said, you know what? She's just kind of like off in the side of the room right now. I went over and started a conversation with Jana and learned a little bit about Jana. That Jana was only the deputy. She had so many titles over the years, but at that point, she was like the right-hand person for Janet Napolitano, and for like 4 or 5 years doing that, right, Janet? Something like that.
Yes, I came in with the Napolitano administration on the waves, forgive me for using this term, of Katrina.
Whoa. She was my friend's neighbors down in the Renaissance Park.
I live in that building now.
OMG.
Yes. I know your friend.
So Janet goes back to Janet, and I met Janet Napolitano thanks to Janet. We went down to the Franciscan Renewal Center, if I'm not mistaken, and they had a wonderful service there. And so everybody's holding hands. So Janet positioned me where I'm holding hands with Janet Napolitano. It was great. It was and nice people, very nice people. Like I say all the time, we don't do politics, we don't do religion. But when I tell the kids that, I say if we have people from politics, we can ask them questions about what they do, but we don't get political. But we ask, if they're a politician, we ask political questions. If they're a religious person, we can ask them about what they do from a religious standpoint.
And today you have somebody who's both.
Absolutely.
There are others too.
Well, there are absolutely. So, Jana, you went when President Obama won the election, and he asked Janet Napolitano to be part of his administration as Department of Homeland Secretary. you went with her, right? You got recruited by Janet again, right?
I did, and I love the way Bob tells everyone's story.
I know.
Isn't that great? He has such a love for all of us that he remembers the most intimate details. And yes, I did.
And you
with
and
Janet.
you did 8 years. You did 8 years of the
Yeah.
administration, right?
She did 4 there, and then went to head up the University of California, but I stayed for the 8.
And Kim, you're going to love some of this because I know how deeply a believer you are. Janice, so your role specifically, both in the Napolitano administration in the state and at the national level with President Obama, your role was, the title was Interfaith. What was your title back then?
I was a deputy director for faith-based and neighborhood partnerships, which was an element that actually started, some people don't believe this, but it started under Clinton with Medicare, Medicaid. The idea was to get faith-based and community groups more engaged in being a liaison to between government and difficult to reach communities. And because I was in Homeland Security, I had the opportunity to work across all 12 of the offices that reported to the White House. And so I actually traveled not only internationally, but all over the country for those 8 years.
And you were, I was just reading up a little bit on you recently. You were involved in, I think, Azerbaijan type stuff. You're very similar to Captain Jeannie Dean's journey through the world. So you were going to a lot of hotspots, right? You were involved in, and you were using faith as a community connector, in effect. Is that part of what you're doing?
Multi-faith dialogue, as well as partnerships around service as a community connector. And I would like to connect with Cap and Jeannie again sometime after this call, because I still am involved with Armenia and Azerbaijan. And many of you know they just did a first move on the peace.
One of the guests almost came here today, but he was busy, but Father Zacharias Sarabekian.
He's my dear friend.
He's a great guy, isn't he? He's a great guy, and the Archbishop from Los Angeles comes to meet with us occasionally. John Borelli over here is very directly related to Jan and you and Cap and Jeannie, in that John is Deacon John Borelli, and John has been a lawyer in the. I'm sure there's so many connections you get with John. So John is a deacon in the Catholic world. You're in the Catholic world, right, John?
Yes.
And so Jana, that's one other connection you're going to want. So John, you need to get close to the microphone, okay? So just what's your deacon? You were a lawyer first, right? You were a lawyer long before you were a deacon, right?
I'm a lawyer in 4 states. I admitted to the Supreme Court. Also, I've been Superior Court
Supreme
Judge
Court of
here, pro
Arizona.
tem. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, in the U.S.
Supreme Court.
Right. My most of this time, I've used that to promote, legal help to people who are underprivileged. I've served almost 28 years at the airport as the chaplain down there. They've had others, but I think I'm the last. What else do you want to know?
John, we're about to go to a break. We'll get a little bit more. We're going to get. Luckily, we got most of these guests for 2 shows.
I'm the least impressive person.
Not too at all, but we're the young reporters, the older version. We're just getting to know people in the studio. Stay with us. We'll be right back after a short break. We're back in the Young Reporters classroom. We've got Kathy Droz, Jeannie Dean, Janice Scott, Kim Reynolds, Paula Hartley, Cap Dean, John Borelli, and Alan Ripa. Alan, real quick, Alan, you brought up something that you ran across the other day, which I think is really interesting. It ties in with some of what we're talking about. You were talking about 25-year-old men, I think. It was related to that. What was the little piece of information you had?
I saw they were reporting 18-year-old to 25-year-old men have not, 45% of them have not asked a girl out on a date in person. And I had mentioned to that when I was on the wonderful Walkway of Wellness. And one of the gentlemen said, I think it's more like 55%. But a lot of that age group has just done texting, and so when it comes to actually talking to girls, they can't. And the girls are pretty, I've been seeing these postings that are just amazing, where the girls are just saying, we don't know why we're dressing up and everything, but the guys aren't coming up and talking to us anymore.
Well, that's part of the issues that we're trying to. One thing with ASU Edson that I love, and Kim Reynolds is our representative from the Edson Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute. Excuse me for my throat. And so Kim is an amazing visionary. I want to make this introduction to these people sitting here in the studio, because without Kim, we wouldn't be here. Without Kelly Randall, we wouldn't be here. Kim and Kelly worked at ACYR together a number of years ago, and one of Kim's things that sort of she holds on to in life is losing Kelly as a principal. And what I love about Kim is she's not afraid to say it. She did have a fabulous principal, and that principal went away, and the replacement principal nowhere in the world filled those shoes. And so Kim gives Kelly a lot of crap about abandoning her, which is kind of funny. But we've had meetings with Kim and with Heidi and with Linda here that basically run the Edson Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute. They are all visionaries. I want everybody in the studio to eventually meet those people, because what they're doing with this thing, what's really cool about it, ties with everybody in the studio, is that they're attempting, Ellen, the thing you brought up about the kids, they recognize from their students that they know they've got technical skills. And Paul, I didn't mean to jump on you on the tech thing, but I'm rabid about some of the stuff, because we have to get back to people being able to communicate. The men have to be able to talk,
I agree with you completely on that. I think my main, what I was more talking about is the marketing aspect of somebody, and how to market whatever company or your foundation or what you're doing is a lot easier because of social media. But in regards to personal relationships, I absolutely think that people need to talk to each other for sure.
And one of the problems is we've built in so many rewards for the idiots in the world. Excuse my language. We built in so many rewards for the people who have the loudest mouths, the angriest voices, the things that are sort of dividing people as opposed to people uniting people. And so those guys make millions and billions of dollars. If you can do a Sirius XM show and be angry enough, you can make $300 million you'll get a contract. But what we're doing here, what ASU Edson is doing, is fixing problems. They're not moving fast to break things. They're moving fast to fix things. And so what Kim is, what we were talking about earlier, that Kim, without the credential of ASU, was just a voice in the wilderness, kind of. And now she's got a big platform, and all of a sudden, and it's kind of like all of us have gone through this to some extent, that we are all doing fabulous stuff to try to create opportunities for other people. I think I would say it this way: a hand up, not a hand out. I think we're all doing stuff in that direction. Teaching how to fish as opposed to feeding fish. I think, and that's when we talk about St. Vincent's or other great nonprofits. My big issue with some of that is that the ball never moves forward. It's always a day-to-day issue, but we never move that ball forward. I was watching a show on CNN a week and a half ago. Fabulous show on homelessness in New York City. It was unbelievable. And so, Kim, one of my missions for us is that I really do want to do the homeless reporters sooner rather than later, because we can fix a lot of the issues. There's this one talented girl in that show, super talented. I think her name was Amini, and it took her about almost a year to get a job from Trader Joe's. She was one of 5 people that got a job out of 3,000 people interviewed, and she was going to waste for years, and she's almost losing hope. And we can fix that by relating to what we're saying about you and your visibility, Kim, having this platform, getting people who never get a platform, getting them to host a show. We're teaching them the skills. We're getting them in front of the community. All of a sudden, we are changing lives in that moment. The same way in this room, if you guys team up, we'll change lives just by doing that.
But to let them have a platform, we got to let them talk.
Yes, absolutely. And so, but part of this, Kim, is that I guess you're hearing some of my frustration in the pace, okay? The pace of progress. And so we have now been doing fabulous stuff in the studio. And what happens when you don't show up?
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens. And so it's a benefit for us here, but there are people who still don't understand within our own team, within the young reporters team, my side of it, that don't understand the value of what we do, and they still don't get it. And so I'm sorry to. So I feel like I've got to be the messenger on a regular basis. Jana, you've probably, I'm sure working in government, it had to be really frustrating at times dealing with the bureaucracy. It's bad enough when you got 535 representatives and senators with massive egos, but I'm sure just dealing in the Department of Homeland Security, it had to be a rough experience at times.
Yeah, and we have a real responsibility to the citizenry of the country. So when you're talking about the bureaucracy of government, I mean, we just had the government reopen last night, right?
But we can't get too political.
Well, no, not political at all. That's one thing. I try not to ever get political. But I just wanted to say that to show the impact of government on the entire nation and really on other nations of the world.
And it's really interesting that you were in interfaith and community and trying to build those relationships, because one of the things that we teach in the programs is when we were working with kids is don't wait for somebody else to fix the problem, be the solution.
Yes.
And you're finding out that the community and the faith communities, and on the break I asked Bob about, because I couldn't remember Joe's name, on one of the shows he brought in Joe Genoveses, who works with Sleep in Heavenly Peace, which is a bed program. Well, it's a really interesting connection because one of the distribution points is the church I go to, but the church that I go to is also the backbone and the start of School Connect. If you've heard of School Connect in Arizona, that's now led by Tracy Bill. Hop on and say,
well, I just was at your church for an international conference. Dan Steffen is a dear friend of mine. Pastor.
He's been my pastor since 1990. Well,
yes.
He was the associate pastor back then, but yeah, he's amazing. But the School Connect was doing a lot of what you're doing. It is, rather than depending on the government or anyone else to fix the problems and the things that are going on in the school, twice a year they have a Love Your School event and it started out with a local school right by the church, and we just showed up on a Saturday and said what needs to be done, and there was painting and cleaning and scrubbing floors and picking gum off the bottom of the table, and it's grown now, and I think they have over 300 churches across the United States involved in it. And they go out and they support. They show up with food for the teachers, backpacks for the kids, and clean. And that's what's so important is, rather than waiting on the rest of the world, rely on the community. And I'm sorry, faith-based organizations, if you're not stepping out and doing what you're supposed to do, that's what you're called to do. And I'm so glad that you did that.
I'm so glad you're saying that too, Kim, because I think that people are afraid of their congregations. I think, and again, without going political or religious, I think if the pastor's afraid to speak like what you just said, they're not fulfilling their mission. John, you've got opinions on this, I'm sure, right?
I have a lot of opinions.
Go right ahead, please.
I mean, the main problem is we do not know how to talk to each other. The problem is that the language does not allow us to do that. You know, everybody's listening to things that really don't relate to group. You know, the question is, who are we as human beings? And, it takes some thinking to do that. It takes quiet. We don't have an environment anywhere where there's silence to give you a time to let your heart and mind kind of get together.
You know, it's funny, John, all you got to do is look at a ballpark. It used to be you go to a baseball game and you talk to the person sitting next to you, and there wasn't like noise between every pitch.
Well, noise is an opportunity to get to nowhere.
Yeah,
okay. I do many hours a week counseling with groups and families and couples. And the main problem is they don't know how to speak to each other. The first thing we need to do is remove all the pronouns and use names and take time to listen. You know, we don't have to agree. We just need to understand that we have things that we need to work on. And a lot of times, most people just need us to listen. And not very many people are listening.
Kim, one of the things that it's funny you bring up the Sleep in Heavenly Peace. One of the things that came from that CNN story on homelessness is that, and it made me think, is that people were being evicted on a regular basis. People who are homeless, they're getting evicted. So that one of the problems is you might have a wonderful nonprofit that provides beds for the kids, but if you're being evicted, all of a sudden the bed is useless to you. So what they need is housing first and jobs. And so we have so much content here, And we got another segment coming up. Oh, are we in segment 4 already coming up, Alan? Is that? Oh my gosh. And I apologize to the panel here for being too vociferous here, but we will be back with one more segment, and we'll have another show after that. So stay with us.
Welcome back to the last segment of the older version of the Young Reporters. I'm Kim Reynolds, and in the room with me here today are Bob Fishman, Kathy Dross, Jeannie Dean, Jana Scott, Alan Ripa, John Borelli, Cap Dean, and Paola Hartley. Did I get it this time?
You got it.
Yes! I even write down how to sound it out, and I still mess it up. So we were talking about really the need of community, and in the programs that we try and do, we teach kids about being the problem solver. So I'm going to lay this out to everyone in the room, because I believe everybody here in their different roles, you with working with leaders in Iraq, and I haven't even heard Jeannie's story, but I know she's doing something. Where have you seen the most powerful impact when faith-based organizations or community organizations stopped relying on anybody else to tackle a problem and just got in and took care of it themselves?
I'd like to say that one of the best things that I've seen, I come from the Kansas City area. I've been out here many years now, but there's an organization that helps families that find themselves out on the street, usually mothers, divorced mothers, single mothers that have children. And what they do is that they bring those family and put them into a housing. They have an apartment, and they set them up. They get them cleaned up. They get them medicated. They get them to school, and they get the mother trained and dressed and to work. And we find that the average family that is on the street can turn around in a very short time. It only takes a few months.
What organization was that, John?
I'll have to provide that
in
name
Phoenix?
for you. No, it's in Kansas City.
Okay.
Yeah, and they do a wonderful job.
We've had we've had Sheila Harris in the studio, who's basically been in charge of homelessness back and forth, and who's also been a Federal Reserve. We had in his first go-around with ASU, we had such a fabulous group of. You need to meet with Sheila Harris, because she is a housing solving problem. Go ahead, Kim, whatever you want to take it.
Oh, no, it's open to everybody. Yeah.
The one thing I'd like to say is that you need to do the Mother Teresa approach. You know, one time a reporter asked her, well, it's too bad you can't help everybody. She says, no, I just do it one person at a time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you need. You make a connection. You get the wheels on the ground, and you turn the rubber and burn the rubber.
When you flew into Iraq, Captain, when you flew into Iraq, that first day, and you knew what your job was to try to turn this in the direction of democracy. I guess it was a big goal, right? What was your assignment when you flew in? When you flew in and you was dodging flak, doing like a nosedive into the Baghdad airport. So they're doing a steep landing, basically. So what were you thinking? As you're landing that day, what are you thinking about the next day when you start your mission? What were you thinking about?
My first thought was, oh my gosh, have I bitten off more than I can chew? And Jeannie, much to my surprise, when I was offered this job, I expected her to say, not only, but heck no, absolutely not. And she said, hey, go for it.
She was willing for me to go over that danger zone, right?
Right.
She was happy then.
Wanted me to go.
It was time for you to be the bride and not the bridesmaid.
Oh, what a great way to say it, Jean. By the way, she is his best protector too. You know, she's a fabulous woman. The power behind the power. So, Cap. So, as you're landing, what was the next day gonna be like? What was your thought? How do you get started?
Well, I had actually gotten a job description spelled out by Congress. It was first bring some stability to the city.
Yes.
Bring some stability to the city, then go ahead and repair all the damage that has been done, unfortunately, I had a $2 billion budget.
I was going to say, you had a $2 billion budget you ran, right?
yeah.
Yep.
Ready to go. No approvals from Washington.
That you were basically,
Needed.
you can distribute it however you want to distribute it. Is that
My
right?
call.
Okay.
And a third was to find replacements for me as one, the mayor of Baghdad, and two, I was also the governor of Baghdad state, which was about 9.5.
So was there a separate, was he going to be the mayor and governor at the same time, your
Right.
replacement? Okay.
Double-headed job.
Okay. And you were doing that job until he replaced you.
That's
But
right.
by the way, this guy that wrote the book wrote some beautiful note in your book. I asked him to bring the book today, but some things get slipped through the cracks. But he wrote a really nice personal note to you, right?
He did, because basically when he came in as mayor, I said, this guy is the mayor, and I'm going to treat him as such and not a conquered person who has been installed under my supervision. But I held that job for about 6 months as mayor, and then he came in, and I was his supervisor for about a month and a half.
And so Cap I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I actually have a question for Cap. So how important was the community in helping to get that reestablished? I mean, you're in a war-torn area.
Yeah,
Well-
what kind of community were you working with?
It was very much war-torn, and we were still in the middle of a combat zone. We had missiles coming in all the time and so forth, but I had a section of the 1st Armored Division and then 1st Cavalry Division working
And you-
directly for me.
Your community basically was the generals, right? You were dealing with all the military leaders at the
Right.
time, weren't you? So in the green zone, right?
I was in the green zone. My main contact was first General Corelli, who was in charge of the 1st Cav, and then General Martin Dempsey, who was in charge of the 1st Armored. Dempsey went on to become chief of staff, highest ranking soldier in the U.S. military. But they were great to work with.
One of the reasons for this show today, Cap Dean had a stroke probably, about 10 years ago, Jeannie? About 10 years ago. And so Cap went from being extremely visible to becoming invisible for quite a while, healing basically. Jeannie, of course, taking care of him like crazy. I was fortunate enough to be able to go down to the hospital probably within the first few days of him having his stroke and being with him in the rehab center repeatedly every time I could. But so one of the things I want to bring up about that, Kim, is that the people we met at Sparking Synergy, your young team, your fabulous team of young people. I keep getting asked the question about where are the kids, where are the young people? They're there. And some of them, I wanted to get them here today too. They were all out of town doing whatever. But they need to meet the Cap Deans. They need to meet the Janice Scotts, because those people are on fire. The team you've built, Kim, is an amazing team of young people. And for them, these people, some of those could write the book. Cap Dean has done a little personal book. One of my missions, all his history needs to be in a book, and not just the personal family. He made a book out of family letters, basically, which is very good. He did it, but somebody needs to take on the job of documenting what they've done and how do you do that? How do you rebuild a war-torn capital of a country that how do you do that? So back to Jana, it relates to. Jana, you went from being 8 years in an administration, and all of a sudden, that platform goes away. So how you become semi-invisible in a different way. How did you deal with that?
Well, I think having kids and grandkids really keeps you from getting invisible.
Okay.
But in the interim, I wrote a little book, and then I went to work for different organizations. But then I started my international nonprofit, which is why I really want to.
Which is what?
It's called the American Center, and we work on not only religious freedom issues, but also issues around bringing people together from various faith and community traditions, with government, with business, and with philanthropy to work on whatever issues are affecting their community. And one quick thing I want to say, because I thought the stories about the engagement of faith groups is so important at the what I call the program level. Faith groups are also very important in the policy level and in being a prophetic voice to really speak to government leaders and to philanthropy to help shape the way that nations get rebuilt. And so that's kind of what I'm working on now.
Kim, by the way, every show pretty much takes a minute or so, which is great, to mention the fact she's looking for her next $250 million to fulfill her mission. And so we need to drive that forward because connecting you guys into this ASU Edson world, their world is amazing. The potential they're not just local, they're national, they're international. And so, Kim, in this studio, there's so many, whatever the goals are for the Edson Institute, these are dream fulfillers in terms of their experience. The kids, the students that go here would benefit from all these ways. You're the visionary. You're the one that can take this whatever direction you want to go with it.
I need to send out an invitation to everybody in the room to be a mentor for the Edson E&I entrepreneurship and innovation programs, because we have mentors that are available to help in entrepreneurship and innovation and to guide the startups and the companies that are doing
So
things.
just in the studio here today, Kim, it's like you got the arts person, the principal dancer person, you've got the international. By the way, their history goes way back to Vietnam era. He was in the Air Force. We'll get that in show two. John Borelli being a lawyer who's apparently done cases at the Supreme Court.
Thunderbird, the international. ASU.
We're all involved with Thunderbird.
But that was pre-ASU, though, right? When it was still over at the old.
Don't put it down.
No. I loved it. I loved it when it was the.
There's a great old movie on the original Thunderbird back in the World War II era. There's a movie called The Thunderbirds that actually is about that university. It's a fabulous movie.
Well, there was also a children's show called, does anybody remember this? The Thunderbirds? Thunderbird
Yes.
1 and 2, and it was animate little puppets.
We're gonna
watch that when I was a kid.
we'll probably get to all that stuff in our second show. We are the young reporters, the older version of it. We've had Kathy Droz, Ginny Dean, Janice Scott, Kim Reynolds. I'm Bob Fishman. We've got Paula Hartley, Cap Dean, John Borelli, and Alan Ripa, who we didn't get any time with Alan, but we will on show number 2. Stay with us. We'll be back soon with our next show. Thank you for listening, and thank you to the people in the studio for being here. You guys showed up, and good things always happen when you show up.
You're welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim.